Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 307, and we are going to be throwing it back to an old episode today. We're taking it all the way back to episode 127 with Mattie James. This was released in January of 2018, so over 4 years ago, but Mattie's lessons on discipline, process, and hustle are still so important, and she has so much to teach us about what it means to build your influencership. Mattie, of course, has gone on to do so many things since this episode, but I still want you guys to hear about all that she had to teach us back in 2018. Enjoy.
And get used to hearing no, because it's going to happen all the time. Get used to hearing no, and just be loyal enough to yourself to keep going and be patient and to do the work necessary, and know that it's going to take longer than you think it is. But that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. It just means that you need to give yourself more time. So I think I essentially was seen less, but made a lot more, just because the things I did say yes to paid me a lot more, because I was really clear on I'm really only interested in working with you because you actually care about my audience and you actually are aware of the kind of brand MattieJames.com is.
Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 127 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear from our guest today, Mattie James. And Mattie is the creator of MattieJames.com. And since 2010, she has worked with brands such as Google, Macy's, Cotton, H&M, and many more. She has a community of over 175,000 lifestyle enthusiasts. And her brand includes a blog, 2 podcasts, a newsletter, a YouTube channel, and a variety of physical and digital products. And I wanted to have Mattie on today to really talk about this idea of momentum. What does it take to truly produce results in your business and brand? And especially if you're an influencer, how can you do this? And how can you actually reach those goals that you've set for yourself this year? So on this episode, we're going to really zero in on Mattie's keys to building an audience, the art of hustling, profitable revenue models, and her favorite networking and relationship building tips. So get ready for that. If you want today's show notes, just go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 127. And if you want to subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening, whether it be Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, just do so. Hit that subscribe button. And it's really good because you'll get notifications every time we have a new episode. And if you haven't been following me on social or you're not part of our online newsletter, you may not know this, but we have Dreams and Drive merchandise for sale. So right now we are selling Dreams and Drive t-shirts, and they're only $10 right now. So if you want to order a Dreams and Drive t-shirt, the easiest way to do so is just to email me, Raina@dreamsanddrive.com, or send me a message on Instagram at Dreams and Drive. And we have t-shirts in red, black, and gray available in sizes small to extra large. So if you want to order a shirt, that's the way to do it. Email me or send me a message on social. And remember, we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you're not following us, just go search Dreams and Drive, hit follow, and make sure we're connected. I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Raina. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
This has been, you have been on my list of people that I would love to have on the show for a long time. So I feel like it's just been, it's so fun when you build a vision and you build a brand and your dreams come true literally as you get to have the guests that you've always dreamed of having on the show. So thank you so much for being on today's episode.
No problem. I'm excited for this.
So let's go back in time. As our listeners know, I love to ask our guests this same question, the way we start off each show, is what inspired you as a child? So if I had to say, who was Mattie, the 8-year-old, the 9-year-old, how would you describe yourself?
I was very much so like my daughter now. So I was very extra, just very active, very talkative, very dramatic. And I just really loved for the things I did to feel like a performance. So even if it was a book report, or, writing my first book, we used to do this thing at my elementary school. Starting in 2nd grade, we would publish a book every year. We'd work on a story and do our own illustrations. And it was just funny to me because I just really made that this big dramatic thing. And now that I'm saying it out loud, it's actually reminding me of my daughter now. My daughter always says she has these super dramatic dreams Mom, there was a monster, but then Spider-Man came and saved me. And I'm always looking at her crazy. But now that I say it out loud, my very first book that I wrote was like me going to like Dracula's house and like he was giving me a tour and it was just like, what is this crazy imagination? But that's really what it was all about. It was about imagination and really me just utilizing that. And I think that's gone with me as I've grown into an adult. But yeah, I think those were the things that excited me. I just loved performance. I was obsessed with Janet Jackson and Michael and all of those things.
Were we all?
Really, yeah. And there was just something about performance that was just so appealing to me. So I think that was pretty much it, like I just was a very, very much extroverted kid and became an extroverted adult. So I think it's been pretty consistent since I was a kid.
What was the dream back then? How do you think that evolved into figuring out like what you wanted to do?
Well, I knew I always wanted to be a performer. So I remember like writing songs growing up and singing and dancing and cheerleading, and I did pageants. And so I was always in things that it required me to be on stage. And I remember when I was 16, about to start my senior year, I had like a private conversation with my mom. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to college because I'm going to go to New York and be a star. And she's like, yeah, don't let your father hear that. And she just kind of like, she brushed it off, and not just, I don't think because she didn't believe in me, but I think for her, especially because my parents are immigrants, it was really important to them that I went to school and had that opportunity, you know what I mean? That, I guess like the American dream kind of family always had, because that's why they moved to this country, for us to have those opportunities. So it definitely wasn't from a place of like disrespect or intentional disregard. But for me, it was just like, I know where I'm supposed to be. And so I did go to school, but I dropped out of school in junior year and I moved to New York, and I did in fact pursue music and different things like that. But I think, now that I'm looking back at it, it was about being really true and authentic to myself. And even if that meant I had to fall flat on my face, I was willing to do that.
Why the decision to drop out?
It just wasn't serving me. I just wasn't challenged. And when I'm in situations where it's too easy, I think what happens is I get easily distracted. And then I don't perform my best because I'm not in a situation that is pushing me to do my best. When things become easy, I'll start out and I'll do really well, right? So I'll start getting good grades and stuff like that. But then if it's not challenging me or, really pushing me to think in a different way, what will happen is I'll get bored. And this is something that's literally since I was a child, I would start to procrastinate, or I would start to, talk too much or do other things. And so I do need to be challenged. And I think that's why I think motherhood and entrepreneurship and marriage mixed in one jambalaya of my life is perfect, because I do have to be challenged for me to stay intrigued and interested in something and want to perform better.
Did making the leap help put you onto the path of figuring out what it was that you wanted to do with your life at that age? Because I know how it was to just be, a junior in college and just trying to figure things out. So take us back to what you were thinking and doing during that time to do so.
It was just like I wanted more. And, your parents really do influence you, like whether you want to admit it or not, right? So your parents have this like direct influence on you. And for my parents, it was all about education. So even if it wasn't like traditional education, quote unquote, like my mom went to cosmetology school, my dad went to undergrad and went to, grad school at The Ohio State. So for them, it was just like, getting a traditional education. And I think for me, I'm a really active person. I think not only my imagination, but I think even for me, I learn better when I'm hands-on and I can make the mistake and learn from the experience. And a 4-year college experience doesn't necessarily always allow you to do that. For me to learn how to speak in front of people, I need to speak, and I need to, I need to suck at that. And then you need to give me a critique. And not every classroom situation is built like that. There were some like that, but the majority of them were not like that. And so for me, I was just like, well, what would challenge me? What would just like completely disrupt the situation? And for me, I consider myself a disruptor. And so I need to be disrupted when I am learning, so it actually sticks with me. And that was pretty much it. It was like, okay, you could actually like stop and you could go to New York City with the $400 to your name from working your part-time job while you're at school. And yeah, there's nothing more disruptive than that, because I think like my parents have always been there for me and always financially been there for me. So for me to leave school, my dad cut me off financially. And he was like, listen, I want everything to go well for you in New York. But like, if you're not going to school and we're paying for school, then, we can't help you in that instance. And I think it just really forced me. It was like being in between a rock and a hard place, right? It just like really forced me to rise to the occasion because I was pretty much like, I literally had to put my money where my mouth was, right? So it's kind of like, oh, you don't want to go to school, you want to be a performer, go do that. And I think, nothing teaches you about your work ethic and your actual hustle more than moving to New York City broke. And,
oh my God, yes. I mean, I haven't done it, so I guess that means it's just
no, but I feel like it just was like, okay, it was like a rude awakening. It was like, okay, we're going to New York. I took everything that I owned, which wasn't much, I was 21. So I was just like, all right, I got my little suitcase. I got my little $400. We had a family friend who lived in New York, and they lived in the projects, but I went, it was already like 5 or 6 people living in this one bedroom. I made it 7. So I really, and I left my parents, 3,500 square foot house, with all the amenities you could think of, because my mom was so awesome at making sure we never had to worry for anything. So, yeah. But for me, it was like, I wasn't interested in, surviving in this bubble for the sake of saying that I did something because everybody else was comfortable with it. And so, yeah, I definitely think there could have been a couple of decisions that, I made like a traditional, like the typical 21-year-old. But for me, it was just like, you know what? I'm proving to you that this is what I really want to do. School is not for me, and that's fine, but I'm willing to work to figure out what is for me.
During that time in New York, what do you think was the biggest thing you learned about what it really takes to hustle and make it? Because I know you're not in New York now, so maybe tell us that story about what was that lesson for you there?
Just that it's way harder. Anything that you want is way harder than you think it is. It's just way harder, and it takes you way longer. So it was those two things. It's 1, it's super, super hard, and 2, it's going to take longer than you ever imagine. So, and I don't say that to be discouraging to anybody, but if you think that you're so good that, it's going to happen for you in a year, you should expect for it to happen for you more 36 months. As far as even just leveling up, not even quote unquote making it per se, just because it does take a while. There's you're not the only person who has this dream. You're not the only person who thinks they can do it. And so you really do, you have to pay your dues. You have to be willing to intern or shadow people or, just meet people and network and stuff like that. And you really do have to, you have to mean what you say and say what you mean, because it's going to be really discouraging. You're going to have days where it's super hard, where it seems impossible, but you need to keep going. And so that's really what New York taught me. It just really kind of gave me those in-your-face lessons that I think my parents were trying to kind of protect me from, but it was really, really good for me in the long run, especially as I became a business owner.
I think immigrant parents love to teach their kids lessons because my parents are Jamaican.
Oh, yeah.
It's I remember it when my sister and I were young, and it's so funny thinking about it now, but we really wanted Cartoon Network, right? But Cartoon Network was an addition. You know how cable packages used to be?
Yep. Oh, girl, I know that Cartoon Network package. It was definitely more expensive than the regular package.
We wanted that, and my parents were like, all right, well, you guys get a monthly or a weekly allowance. Are you willing to part with, maybe it was $2 out of your allowance every week? And we had to do this long and hard thought, you know what? We could watch Cartoon Network at Grandma's house on Saturdays and Sundays. But it's so important, those things that our parents teach us that we sometimes realize later, because now I think I'm able to, I realize there's things we need versus things that we want, and that you don't always have to. You don't always need those things that you want, and there's a time and place for when you can actually get it, and it won't be it won't break your budget, which is something we learned as 10-year-olds. But thinking about you're known, Mattie, for just your fabulous, like, online blogging, online coaching, all that stuff. Like, how did you get interested in the online world? Because you said you went to New York to become a performer. So when did that transition happen for you?
Well, I think the thing is, you know, I'm a Gemini, you know, I think by nature and of course my birthday. So I think I've always had like a twofold love. So I've always wanted to perform, but I think I've always loved and just naturally had an inkling for writing. Once the music thing for me, like I really started to understand and find out how the industry worked, blogging became this thing that happened on the scene. And I had moved to Atlanta after living in New York for a year because my grandfather had fallen ill. So I wanted to be close to family. And, you know, I had learned about this blogging thing, and that became fascinating to me as I was working like my part-time retail gigs. And when I started seeing like how they worked, I was like, oh, I can do this. You know what I mean? And again, lo and behold, I can do this, but it's a lot harder and it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Yeah, I've always loved writing. You know what I mean? Like I was the sports editor of my high school newspaper when I was a senior. And I was the first female student to do that at my high school. You know, I had published, quote unquote, my first book since second grade, and writing had always been something that was a part of me. I always kept a journal. I always kept a diary. Like writing was really that crazy imagination that I was telling you that I had when I was 8 writing allowed me to kind of get that imagination out without keeping it bottled inside. And even like as I graduated high school and even went into college, I would write these movie scripts. You know, I would want these stories to become movies and all of that. So writing was always a part of my life, but being able to do it in this cool way online, either on like a daily or weekly basis, was fascinating to me. And so I did it. I started it as a hobby in 2008. Once I won Miss Liberia USA in 2009, I had a lot more eyes on me. So in 2010, I was like, well, let me get serious and buy my domain. So when I was doing it in 2008, it was on a very hobby level. There was no level of consistency and there was really no goal of like making money, because at that point, I didn't really even understand how you can make money online, especially through blogging. But by 2010, it started becoming a little bit more apparent. You could work with brands and different things like that. So in 2010, I bought the domain and started getting a lot more serious and consistent about it. And at first, I didn't really know what I was doing, just like most people when they first start out. I thought I needed to talk about celebrity style, since style was my thing. But I think I realized people were interested in my voice and my perspective, you know, on things, whether I wear the kind of makeup I was into or anything like that. And so slowly but surely, I started sharing that more and more and getting consistent with that and learning how to become a strong online storyteller.
That is so amazing. I just think that a lot of us don't realize, just think about the evolution to that point, right? You learned a lesson, then you moved back to Atlanta, then you were discovering or reigniting that love for writing, and you built this online platform, Mattiology. Do you remember what it was like when you started to realize, wow, people like what I'm posting? Maybe there's something I could build even further than what I ever thought.
It was really, I think, probably about a year into when I created my first blog, Mattiology. It was really like, what had happened was I had entered a blogging contest at the end of 2010, and it was called Full-Time Fabulous. It was actually created by Sunglass Hut, and they were looking for like the next big fashion blogger. And the winner was going to get $100,000, and they were going to give them $1,000 monthly shopping allowance, and they were going to, you know, pretty much sponsor their life for a year, where they would live in the brand new W at the time in the financial district. So I was like, oh yeah, who doesn't want that? You know, I was a newlywed. We didn't have any kids. I was like, yeah, we'll make a life work in New York. Like my husband was like, yo, you have to do this. Like you could totally win something like this. So I had to do like a 60-second video. So I did the 60-second video. I long story short, I didn't win, but I became a top 10 finalist, and that really taught me how to interact with brands. It definitely gave me a push in like my social media following because of like the visibility that I was getting. And during that contest for 30 days, we had a blog about our personal style. So I could not lean on celebrities. And so I started sharing about like three ways to wear a dress and, you know, like my favorite lipstick for the holidays and different things like that, because it was in December of 2010. What I realized was when I would check the analytics of those posts, people really resonated when I was talking about my personal experiences with the product or what I did versus just talking about cool sunglasses or, you know, something that wasn't attached to my story. And so that's when I realized, like, oh, what people care about is the narrative of me, this normal and approachable person, having these experiences with products that they already do like, but how I interpret that or use it in my life.
I know that I'm going to fast forward. We could definitely go through your story a lot more in depth, but I really want to get into the tips that you have for our listeners today. You got let go from a job, right? And it kind of spread you into blogging full time, where you started to realize, okay, how can I make this passion of mine a business? Can you walk us through those first few months of how you were able to set up your brand so that you were able to build revenue and build out your services and what you were going to offer to the world now that you're doing it full time?
In the beginning of Mattieology, I wasn't working because I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to become a full-time blogger and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Again, it takes way longer than you think. So, yeah, I didn't make money for the first 3 years of me blogging. So I got like a 9 to 5 because I wasn't working at the time. You know, my husband was like, go for your dreams. So I was very blessed to be in a situation where I had a spouse that was supportive. Started working at the end of 2011 and worked this job for about 3.5 years, and I got let go in the summer of 2015. Now, by 2013, I had started making pretty consistent money from blogging, but wasn't taking that seriously, would blow it off on clothes and makeup and different things like that. When I had my daughter in 2014, we had really gotten to a place where it was like, whoa, you could actually leave your job. But it was something that I was really apprehensive about just because I just had a little bit of guilt, especially now that I have become a parent, you know, to leave my quote unquote good job to, you know, fulfill my dream of making my blog my business. But in 2014, I just had there was just something that happened to me that kind of carried out in 2015. There was just like a motivation. I think that because I was a mother, that I was even more determined and motivated than ever. So long story short, 2015 was probably just like when I really realized that I could do it. And it was funny because I was like, okay, I think I'm going to quit. I'll quit in September. I'll quit in July. And it happened in June. So it was kind of like, okay, well, now you actually have to again, put the money where your mouth is, you know? And for me, it was a very transitional year because at the top of 2015, was like the first time that I had gotten into webinars and more of that like infopreneur type of blogging. You know, beforehand I had really just been doing style blogging and a little bit of YouTubing and stuff like that. 2015, I also started to dabble in podcasting as well. So for me, it really opened up my eyes on all these different areas that I could establish in my brand as a blogger. And when I got let go, I literally just was like, okay, this means it's go time. And my assistant at the time, who now runs my operations on a day-to-day basis, we just figured it out. We figured out how I could get an outfit post out every day, how we could get a podcast out five times a week. We just like really, you know, put the pedal to the metal and, you know, it really wasn't overnight, you know, like I said, I had been making money since 2013, but I think the motivation behind it, and even like me believing in myself because it now was a reality definitely helped me. And so it definitely helped build my confidence, which I think, was shown in my consistency. And yeah, it was just great. And I really did also feel like a connection to my audience that I had not really ever felt before. So that was a really great part of my career for sure.
COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too. If you feel symptoms, even if they're mild, you should test fast. Test positive and at high risk for severe COVID-19? Then act fast with authorized oral treatments that can be taken at home and must be taken within 5 days from when symptoms begin. COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too by asking your healthcare provider if an oral treatment is right for you. Learn about a treatment option at treatcv19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Dream drivers, you do it all without breaking a sweat. Like being a boss exec to Tuesday tennis to homework. Yo, why do the kids even have so much homework? Family dinners, lunches, brunches, trips to the vet, and a weekend getaway that's anything but a getaway. And you do it all in style. Even when you have back-to-back conference calls on top of the kids' orchestra recitals, not to mention your side hustle. That's why we created the fully reimagined Infiniti QX60, a luxury SUV as functional as it is stylish and as versatile as it is serene. With premium features like a panoramic room roof, ample cargo space, and available massaging front seats to bring the ease of luxury to your everyday. Introducing the all-new Infiniti QX60, designed to help you take on life and all the chaos that may come with it in style. Learn more at InfinityUSA.com. Now with extremely limited availability, contact your local retailer for inventory information. This episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by This Is Elle. Hey, my lady dream drivers. As a lot of you may know, I'm all about keeping it natural and keeping it healthy. And as a dream driver, I believe it is so important for us to take care of our mind, souls, and bodies. And the one time of the month that some of us may forget to do that is that time of the month, aka period time. So meet This Is Elle, period care inspired by nature. This Is Elle has a 100% organic cotton core. Elle tampons are organic cotton without that organic price. Elle is the #1 cotton brand in feminine care in the U.S., and it's made for everyone. Their tagline is, "We may not all look the same, but we are all created equal. So let's treat every person, every body, every vagina with love." Elle is for loving your body with clean and simple period care, free from synthetic pesticides and dyes. So as we're on this dream driving journey, let's invest in our feminine health, guys. If you're in the market for new feminine products, visit thisiselle.com to learn more.
What were you doing to make sure that you were increasing your visibility and bringing in new people who hadn't known about what you were doing in your blog and your brand?
We just posted every day, you know what I mean? And just like my counterpart, like most people don't have the discipline and the commitment to do that, you know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, like the person, if you're willing to do the work every day, you know, somebody new will find you, especially like, not only was it like posting content on the blog, we were like promoting me every day, like on every channel. So on Twitter, we were putting out 20 to 30 promo tweets, you know what I mean, with very specific copy, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, we still do about like 20, we do about like 20 to 25 promotional tweets a day, like Monday through Friday. Yeah, with copy and stuff like that. We were doing Pinterest. We still didn't really know how to use Pinterest back then, but we would like pin every now and again. But I was very consistent on Pinterest, which is why I have like 13,000 followers on there. And I think a lot of people underutilize Pinterest. And for me in 2018, I'm living on Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube. Like if you want to be visible, those are the platforms that you really pour your energy into. But yeah, we were very consistent, not only with the content creation, but with the content promotion. And I think that's what allowed me to become a lot more visible. And I really did maximize Periscope live video, and the live video thing, live video will always open you to a new audience. You know, it's like one of those things like people share live video. When they see live video, they want to see what's going on, you know, just because people are naturally inquisitive. And so that's how I did it, you know, and I was Periscoping for about like 3-4 months there. I was Periscoping about 4 to 5 times a week.
I remember that. And I love that. And then sometimes you would bring in your sister and you guys did stuff together. And it's so funny because Periscope was before, you know, Instagram Live. Even was it before Facebook Live? Was it the first?
Yeah, it was before Instagram Live and Facebook Live.
So thinking about that, you talked about consistency, and I think a lot of us dream drivers, we want to be more consistent. But I'm a big believer is you can't be consistent without knowing what you want to be consistent and what your goals are. And I know just by going on your site now, which you rebranded to MattieJames.com, You're a big believer in processes and systems and having a plan. And I'm actually looking at your Style Blogger business plan in front of me, which is something we can link to because I think it's a great resource. And you can definitely use it if, even if you're not a style blogger, just the outline, and definitely apply it to whatever you're doing. How did you figure out what was your approach to developing the plan for your business?
Well, I just had to get really clear on what I wanted. And I think being a blogger is part of my journey, but it isn't the journey. It's part of it. You know what I mean? It isn't the entire journey. I know that I want to get into physical products, not just info products. I know that my ultimate goal is to become like an international talk show host, and for me, I was interested in you knowing me as the personality and the brand more than Mattiology, the blog. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, that means I need to go by my name. You guys need to know me as the person. And it, to me, it just was like a growth matter because I think with Mattiology, it was something that I could kind of hide behind because it was kind of like a screen name, you know what I mean? And so for me, it was like, I don't need to hide anymore. Like I'm valuable enough. I'm confident enough in my skill and my value that I can just go by my name. For me, I also believe that Mattiology was very style and beauty focused. And I think as I'm growing, MattieJames.com is more of like an overall lifestyle site. Like I think people are not only interested in, maybe what I wear as far as like lipstick or shoes or anything like that, but I think people are interested in how I run my life. You know what I mean? How do I balance marriage and motherhood along with running my business? You know what I mean? Like, oh, what do me and my sister like to do if we're not working on our businesses? I think people are interested in that narrative. And to be quite honest, I think just like consumers and readers and followers are just a lot more smarter than they were 8 years ago. And so for me, I felt like staying Mattiology would have been doing them a disservice. There's just so much more. And that's what we're tapping into as we go into 2018. There'll be some more changes before I go on maternity leave. But yeah, I just think that for me, I had to think about my brand from a 360 standpoint. And I think like Mattiology only allowed me to do it on a 180 standpoint.
What was the challenge that you faced during this time with building the brand? Was there something that was a real big hurdle for you to get through?
Yeah, just trying to live a life and be a person that I wasn't because I was so concerned about what people thought about me. You know what I mean? I was so focused on what was important to other people instead of being impactful in my own personal life, like in my household, in my actual relationships, whether it be my marriage, my relationships with my family and my close friends and stuff like that. And so for me, you just have to step away. And early last year, I had to just step away and kind of pull myself together. And I talked about this in an Instagram post, and I am going to take the time out to elaborate probably after the baby. But, like last year, I was just in a really bad place. My husband and I had gotten separated. We had, you know what I mean? So it was all these things going on. And it was really just because I was putting everybody else, like my audience and my followers and what I thought people thought I should be over my actual real life. And I think that what happens is, we have to be really careful. Like, social media is definitely part of my job. I'm on it every single day. But I think what we have to realize is that it doesn't define us. Like, it's an extra fun thing that we get to do. You know what I mean? And for me, that was what I had to go through to really learn and understand that. So I'm not really, while I do value my audience and I'm very thankful for the people who support me, what they always think about me isn't important. You know what I mean? My focus is how can I be impactful as a wife, as a mother, as a person contributing to this world versus how many likes can I get on Instagram or anything like that. And, this year has been probably the least visible I've been, I would say, definitely since I've been full-time as a blogger, but it was easily the most profitable. I mean, I have easily doubled, and honestly, I probably have done more than that, but I've easily doubled my income within the last 8 months. And it just proves that value and visibility is not synonymous.
Oh, you mentioned so much there, but there are two things I want to unpack why is it really important for influencers, the people who are growing their influencership, to really take time for self-care?
we really undervalue ourselves as people, right? So I think that's the first thing. So once you like acknowledge that and know, like, because we keep on harping, the reason why we keep on harping on self-care is because we're not taking care of ourselves, you know? So that's why self-care has become so big, I think, as a buzz topic within the last couple of years. But I think it's really important. Like, you know, like I can remember a couple of years ago, like getting up and like the first thing I do is check Instagram. The first thing I'm doing is checking Twitter. And there's something about just like starting your day with a whole bunch of strangers and a whole bunch of spirits, if we're being honest, just like spewing a bunch of toxic language and energy, and that literally officially becoming like the theme of your day. What you consume in the first 15 minutes of your day becomes the official theme of your day. So I think we have to be really careful with that. I quite frankly, at this point in my life, it cannot be what's on Instagram and what's on Twitter. It just can't be. I think the other thing that's happening is that we keep on putting out work, right? And we keep on pouring into other people, which I think is a good thing, but I cannot pour into you until I pour into myself. So for me, that's prayer. For me, that's reading books that make me smarter, listening to podcasts that challenge me, and different things like that. But a lot of us keep on trying to export all this information and content, and it's like you're not importing anything. You're not pouring anything into you. So it's like, how can you be consistent and put out quality work if you're not pouring into yourself quality information and content and voices and learning and getting smarter? Like if you're not getting smarter every day, what is the entire point? You know, and you're not getting. Personally, for me, I don't get smarter every day when I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I don't. I'm not saying that there aren't things on there that can make you smarter, right? Because there's, you know, I think like I read most of my news stuff from, you know, publications on Twitter and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of us are just like interacting with our friends and followers and like laughing at memes and stuff like that, which I think there's always a time for. But it cannot be the fluent language of your everyday life. You know what I mean? That can get really, I think that can get really toxic. I think you need to be really careful with that. But yeah, I think there's so many things on Pinterest and so many things I've saved like via Twitter. I have like a whole DM thread to myself with like articles that have made me smarter. But yeah, but you can find a lot of other great things via a book, a podcast, you know what I mean? Talking to a family member who's older than you and kind of lived and experienced things. So I think what it is a delicate balance. I think it is about knowing like that's not the only thing out there. You know, for a lot of us, that's become the basis of like our life. Like, okay, well, what does Instagram think? Did people like this? You know what I mean? And a lot of us are so focused on like looking like we're living a life instead of actually living it. And it's fine to post pretty pictures. I live for a pretty picture. That's actually how I make my money. So I'm all about that. But again, I think we got to be careful and know that that's not the end all be all.
So you also talked about how just focusing in really helped you double your revenue this year. Can you tell our dream drivers just some easy tips or some really doable tips that we can use in our lives if we want to be more profitable with our brands, especially people who have online brands?
Yeah. Everything just needs a process of the system, everything, you know what I mean? And also be open to like changing that process and system. Like don't think like that has to be the one thing for the rest of your life or your business or whatever have you. You know, I am in the process of changing my editorial process just because we have a little bit more hands on deck and also because we're creating different types of content. So it's like I'm not only shooting outfit posts anymore. Now we're doing lifestyle posts and food posts and family posts and different things like that. So you do have to change as you grow. I'm 33 now, so I'm not wearing the same outfits and clothes that I was wearing when I was 23, you know, like, because I changed and I've grown and those things worked when I was 23. They just don't work for me now. So I think we just also have to be open to change and knowing that that's inevitable and not being afraid of that. But you do need a process and actually take the time to like time yourself doing something and then breaking that down step by step. steps. I think a lot of times we go into it with a plan, and a plan is fine, but a plan is only part of it. You know what I'm saying? You know, a plan is literally what you're trying to do, what it is you're trying to accomplish, which is great. Where are you trying to go? You know what I mean? Great. But I think the process is how you do that. And then, of course, your strategy is why you do that. So for me, I think it's definitely hand in hand. It's like, okay, you want to post every day. Cool. There's fine. There's nothing wrong with posting every day. If you wanted to post Monday through Friday every single day, cool. But what is the point of that? You know what I mean? Like, why are you trying to do that? Why do you want, like, a lot of people, we get really hung up on, like, okay, I need more followers. I need more followers. And it's like, well, do you even know how to serve the 700 people who are serving you while you're worried and trying to get 70,000? You know what I mean? And you got to be clear, like, why do you want, you know, I had that conversation with Maya the other day. You know, it's like, okay, this is how much money I want to make. So Maya of MayaElias.com is my younger sister, who's also an entrepreneur and an influencer. And, you know, we have these conversations all the time. It's like, you know, she's really great at processes and organizing and stuff like that. I think my strength is definitely like coming up with new ideas and putting them out there and getting people excited about stuff. But I think for us, the conversations we have is like, oh my gosh, this is a money goal I have, or I think I could totally do this. And it's like, this is great, but why? You know what I mean? Like, let's get to the bottom of this. Why do we want to do this? Let's make sure we're doing this from a place of excitement and from a place of knowing that you're enough versus a place of like insecurity. You know what I mean?
Which one of your revenue streams has been the most profitable for you once you made that switch?
In 2017, my most profitable income stream has been working with brands. I have never, in 2015, it was a real even balance of, both like courses, online courses, and working with brands. Last year, it was definitely a little bit more on the course side. And this year was the first year that I surpassed 6 figures working with brands. But not only that, but like I've actually surpassed any 6-figure goal that I've ever had, you know, working with brands. So for me, it was really just like, and we just streamlined the process, you know what I mean? We got really clear on what we wanted my press kit to look like and what my rate sheet looked like and what we wanted that process to feel like. So it's like before we even start discussing money, I get on the phone with a brand. Like, I'm not just interested in you cutting a check. I'm interested in you caring about not only who I am as a creator, but my audience. Why do you want access to my audience? Let's have that discussion, you know? And are you just interested in cutting me a check so you can control everything I'm doing? So being really clear on why I create content for a brand was probably the biggest change I made as an influencer, for sure. And then, you know, also just having somebody specifically tag team with me in that, you know, so I'm self-managed, but for me, really streamlining the correspondence with my operations manager made a huge, huge difference that made sure we did not miss deadlines, that made sure we did not miss sending out invoices or getting checks in a timely basis. But it was because we went into that really, really intentional. We had a clear process and making sure we got like contracts countersigned before we even began work, making sure that all of those contracts were saved, making sure that, you know, our invoices look like this, making sure that people understood like what I actually charge for something versus just coming to me and throwing me a number was also really important as well. So I think like I essentially was seen less, but made a lot more just because the things I did say yes to paid me a lot more because I was really clear on like, I'm really only interested in working with you because you actually care about my audience and you actually are aware of the kind of brand MattieJames.com is.
So I'm going to direct our listeners to your podcast, to your blog, because you do, like when I say that, Mattie, I know you had a podcast about picking your brain, how to do it better, right?
Yep.
Podcasting a blog post about it, so I will link to it instead of asking you right now. But the one thing I want to ask you though is, do you still think it's feasible for new, like people who are new to the online space, creative entrepreneurs, to work with brands?
Yeah, I absolutely think it's feasible for a new creator to do that, and I think what it is about building your arsenal, as I always like to tell new people. So it's like a lot of people are like, well, they didn't offer me any money. And it's like, well, girl, what have you done for somebody to give you money for that? You know what I mean? So it's really about building your content arsenal. So it's like, it's not only about doing, because I think a lot of people are like, well, I've had my blog for a year. And it's like, well, what kind of content do you create well? So it's getting clear, like, do you do YouTube videos well? Do you do flat lays well? Do you do podcasts well? What do you do well that you could look somebody in the face and ask them for money and not blink twice? So I think it's about building that arsenal. So that is why in the beginning I encourage people to post often and post consistently so you can get past that learning curve, because that learning curve is inevitable. But I do think it's about building your content arsenal. So then that way you have reference content. So when somebody's like, oh, well, hey, do you work with brands? And what do you do if you do work for brands? You have a clear answer because you now have this reference arsenal, as I like to call it.
Yes, that is so, so true. And what about just figuring out relationships in the business as well? Because I think, working with brands isn't the only way for you. Like working directly with brands, you also have to build relationships as well. How do you go about building or starting the conversation so that you can eventually make the pitch?
I think it's just about really paying attention to like what brands are doing, like what new products do they have coming out, what collection are they pushing, how do they work with brands currently, or how have they worked with brands in the past, I think that's really important. Here's the thing, I think like going to conferences and meeting these reps in person is huge, especially as a content creator, influencer, blogger, if you're in any of those kind of, if any of those are your titles, right? But if you don't have the chance to meet them in person, which is huge, by the way, because when people meet you, they remember you, especially if they like you. And when people like you, they will always pay you. But I think also if you do just make a cold pitch, it's just know exactly what you need to be pitching them and know what they're going to say yes to. If you're pitching a brand who typically works with bloggers more so on just a product placement level, and you're trying to pitch them this like elaborate campaign, then you're probably going to hear a no. But if you can pitch somebody and say, hey, I know that you guys work with bloggers in this capacity, and I think I can really deliver some results for you, especially with the audience that I have, you're more likely at least to get the conversation going. Also, I'm always huge on like jumping on the phone with somebody, especially since if I did not get the chance to meet you in person, like, hey, this is what I'm really thinking about. Hey, would love to work with you guys in this capacity, and would love to jump on the phone for a really brief call just to explain in person and thoroughly what I had in mind and how this can be of some value to you. But don't be afraid to jump on the phone. I'll tell you what, I think out of the 40 brand campaigns I've done this year, I've been on the phone with 37. I would say 36 to 37 of them.
Wow. Were these people that you just like, that you cold pitch, or these are people that you knew already?
Yeah, I would say out of the 40, I think I've pitched 2. But yeah, I just get pitched on a regular basis. But I think we also are really intentional and strategic with that too. Like my email is available in every single social media bio. When you go to my site, I don't even think we have a contact form. It's just my direct email. Like I do not like the contact form is literally taking so much money out of people's pockets. People want to just directly email you and know that you're a real person and stuff like that. So we really do create an environment where people can find me and contact me and stuff like that. So yeah.
What would you say to the person who is listening to this podcast right now and just is feeling not confident about being able to implement any of this?
Just to keep going, you know what I mean? Like pull yourself out of the center. You're not the only one who's not getting a brand campaign right now. And I think know that in the beginning, it is going to take you doing the outreach, you know what I mean? And you doing the calling and you doing the reaching out, just because the industry is also in a place where there's a lot of this going on, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of influencers and bloggers, especially who either are full-time or want to be full-time. So if you want to be a part of that group, do the work that it takes to be a part of that. You know what I mean? Don't get discouraged. There's so many different opportunities, and get used to hearing no, because it's going to happen all the time. Get used to hearing no. And just like be loyal enough to yourself to like keep going and be patient and to do the work necessary, and know that it's going to take longer than you think it is. But that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. It just means that you need to give yourself more time.
Yep. So what are your favorite business or favorite business resources that you would recommend for our creatives and lifestyle entrepreneurs listening in? Things they need to be on right now.
I mean, if people don't use Asana, I definitely encourage them to, because I think that definitely helped me get a lot more organized and streamline my processes. So Asana is a project management system. They have an app. They have a free option. So they do have like some paid plans, but their free plan is super great. And it just allows you to set deadlines and even assign things if you're collaborating with people or you do happen to work with another person. It's really, really great for that. But I love it because you can set your deadlines. You can write exactly what you want to accomplish. Like, I think Asana is actually a really even great option for an editorial calendar as well. We're about to start using a system called Airtable that is just so fantastic. It's pretty much like this fluid and live spreadsheet that you can pretty much like put your idea in, what you want your link to be, what you want your header photo to be, when you want it published, who you want it to be, published by. So it's really, really great. I'm super excited about Airtable. That's really going to be our editorial system as we go into 2018. But I think using those two things, I would be blown away. And I know they're out there, but if you're not using Google Drive, you definitely need to use it. Google Drive is just huge, and I think you absolutely need to use it. But yeah, I think those things, I think the things I use every day is Google Drive, Dropbox, Asana, and as we're moving into 2018, I use Airtable to create our editorial calendar.
What keeps you going on those days that you feel like giving up, Mattie?
Just the fact that I woke up and that literally to complain, literally to complain about being able-bodied and essentially getting paid to be myself is silly, and I have those moments where you have to talk yourself out of bed. It's like, are you kidding me? You're getting annoyed because somebody's cutting you a check to do 3 Instagram posts. Get over yourself, but I'm really blessed because I do have also a really strong support system. And so making sure that I keep, if I do have an issue, I can take it to my husband or I can take it to my sister or my mom and them support me is really important, and I understand not everybody has that, but even if you have one person who does affirm you and speaks life into what you're doing, keep them around and don't take them for granted, you know what I mean? But you can do that yourself too, even if you're feeling good one day, write all the affirmations you need to write down. So on those days where you do feel bad, you have a place to go to and read that and feel encouraged again.
So let's go into our lightning round, Mattie. At this point of our interview, I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind, and we're sticking with our whole dreams and drive metaphor, okay?
Okay.
All right. The first word is part.
I think it makes me think of still, you need to be still. That's what it makes me think of. You need to be still.
Reverse.
Looking the wrong way, looking the wrong way. I think that, I'm sorry, not looking the wrong way, going the wrong way. I think sometimes you do have to look behind you to make sure that you are, to kind of, see how far you've come and stuff like that. But I think you don't really need to reverse. You're going the right way. Figure it out.
Neutral.
Coasting.
Drive.
Sure. Sure of where you're going.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
Definitely a solid foundation. So in faith, in family, and within yourself. So figure out what those things are for you. But your foundation, please, should not be based in social media. But yeah, you just need a solid foundation. I think too, you just need to be clear on your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Money is just not a good enough answer. You want to make a living, yes. That's all of us, because at the end of the day, we need to eat, we need sleep, we need shelter and food and all of that. But why are you doing this? Why do you want to help the group of people you're helping? Get clear on what your why is. Get clear on what is the purpose driving you, right? For the sake of the analogy. And then last but not least, I think you need to have fun. You know what I mean? If you're not enjoying it, it is going to be hard work because it's going to be harder than what you thought it was supposed to be because it's supposed to, but you should be enjoying yourself along the way. You should be laughing at yourself, falling flat on your face and having to get back up again. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. If something difficult happens, be able to laugh and not take yourself so seriously, especially if you're trying to do something similar to me where I'm full-time blogging or, creating online courses and stuff like that. It's really not that deep. You know what I mean? We're not curing cancer. So if you're not able to laugh at yourself and have a good time along the way, then you might want to step back and kind of reevaluate your why, right? And your why is definitely going to come from your foundation.
Well, thank you so much, Mattie. This has been such a pleasure talking to you. And also, congratulations. You are expecting baby number 2. I didn't get to say that on the onset. But
thank you.
Wishing you a safe delivery. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online if they want to learn more about you or consume all the great content that you put out?
You can follow me everywhere on social media at the Mattie James. So I'm the Mattie James on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, but especially follow me on Instagram. I think, I keep you guys in the loop the most there. And then you guys can, of course, check out the site over at mattiejames.com. And, of course, you can, if you guys just look up on iTunes, The Mattie James Show, you'll find my podcast there as well.
And last question, Mattie. When you hear the word dream driver, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Somebody who's willing to go get their dream and they're willing to drive to go get it.
Thank you so much.
No problem, Raina. Thank you.
All right, so that was a wrap for episode 127 with Mattie James. I hope that you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. And if you liked that episode, the best thing you could do is screenshot it and share it with a friend. My favorite way for people to share is via Instagram stories. So if you love this episode, just screenshot it right now, go to your Instagram stories and upload and tag us. We are Dreams and Drive, and you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. If you want today's show notes, because Mattie had a lot of good tweetables, a lot of good quotables. They all can be found on the website. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com and then click on episode 127. Remember, we are at Dreams and Drive across the board, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So I really hope that you guys can go on and follow us and make sure we're connected. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group, it's so easy. All you have to do is just search Dream Driver Mastermind the next time you're on Facebook, or you can just go to dreamsanddrive.com/Facebook and you can request access there as well. And if you haven't been following me on social or you're not part of our online newsletter, you may not know this, but we have Dreams and Drive merchandise for sale. So right now we are selling Dreams and Drive t-shirts and they're only $10 right now. So if you want to order a Dreams and Drive t-shirt, the easiest way to do so is just to email me, Raina at dreamsanddrive.com, or send me a message on Instagram at dreamsanddrive. And we have t-shirts in red, black, and gray available in sizes small to extra large. So if you want to order a shirt, that's the way to do it. Email me or send me a message on social. And I know, a lot of you might be like, why don't you have a shop set up? It's coming soon. I just wanted to test and validate some ideas, do some research before I actually just jumped into the online e-commerce world that way. So let's get to our listener of the week. So for the past few weeks, I have been reading reviews that you all have been leaving on Apple Podcasts. And of course, this week I'm going to read another one. And this one is coming from Dina D57. And she says, "Hi, great podcast. I found out about you via Therapy for Black Girls, and I've been listening ever since. Thank you so much, Dina. And thank you so much to Joy of Therapy for Black Girls. A few weeks ago, we did a podcast ad swap. So I did a ad on her podcast and she did an ad on my podcast. And it has just been so incredible to do that. And I've just been so thankful for everyone who has come over from Therapy for Black Girls. So thank you, Joy. And if you guys have not heard Therapy for Black Girls, you definitely need to go search it and subscribe today. And thank you to everyone who has signed up for my podcast coaching sessions. I'm so thankful that, every week I'm getting people who are interested in working with me one-on-one and building their podcast, or just getting feedback on how they can take their podcast to the next level. If you want to work with me, you want to learn more about the coaching sessions, basically you get a 1-hour coaching session with me. And then after that, I'm going to give you a complete audit of one of your episodes and really give you tips on what I think you can do in order to build your podcast and take it to the next level. To book a session or to learn more, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/session. That's dreamsanddrive.com/session. And also you get some freebies there. I won't give it away here, but you got to go to the page to see what those freebies are. And next week's episode is going to be with Sarah Kunst, and it's going to be amazing. She's a former VC turned entrepreneur, and she now runs the company Pro Day. So we're going to hear about her story and how she ended up as a Black woman in the VC world and how she navigated that and all the lessons she's learned. So definitely get pumped for that one. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 128. Bye, guys.